Unbelievable! This is
The Grove Podcast.
Hello, my name is Tabs and welcome to episode 124 of The Grove Podcast. Now, I hope you're all doing well. It's Monday evening and look, if you're still looking for any semblance of the football media giving Pep and Man City grief for parking the bus at the Emirates yesterday, I'm afraid to say it's a futile endeavour and there are much better things to do with your lives, like listening to this pod. So yesterday's 1-1 draw raised a lot of interesting topics like that one and emotional reactions. And to discuss and dissect that with me on the show today is Jamie. Jamie, how are you doing? And did you actually manage to find any Pep criticism? Outside of Arsenal, outside of the Arsenal fan base?
No, it was interesting, wasn't it? I actually really enjoyed Pep's post-match interview, funnily enough, which I'm sure we'll chat about at some point. But
No, go for it. Well, go on, start with that. What did he say? I missed that.
It was interesting, actually. Basically, he basically just said, I think the interviewer, he was an absolute twat of a man on Sky who does the post-match interviews.
Yeah.
It was an idiot in the Arteta interview, and he's even more of an idiot in the Guardiola interview. He's desperately trying to get him to say something about the schedule and to get him to have a moan, basically. And Guardiola, actually, in fairness, came across very dignified during it. He also still had that exasperated, oh my God, I've just been through war, why are you talking to me expression that he does. But he effectively said, look, we played this way because, he's like, the schedule's a thing, fine, whatever. But we played this way because like Arsenal are the better team, and they were the better team on the day, and they are very strong and have all these capabilities. And I don't want to play this way. I want to play, the way that classic City and classic Barcelona play, but I can't because they have the players to stop me from doing that. The players to hurt us. Is to paraphrase what he said over the course of several answers, but he very much just said, I thought Arsenal were the better team, and if we turned up and tried to play in another way, we were going to get beaten. So this is why I turned up and did this, and I want to do something different, but we're not there yet.
Nice one.
So very much looked like, Pep acknowledges he's in a rebuild. Pep acknowledges that Arsenal are in a stronger position, and didn't want to brush it off as being scheduled. Yes, he acknowledged that stuff. Of course he did. He said, we had a hard game the other day. But I actually found it very, very dignified. And him, talking about, how much of a, how, this is what he had to do. So it was, it's a nice interview from Pep.
Well, interesting. Did he particularly call out Marino and Trossard? No, anyway, we'll get to that. That's just stoking the bear, so to speak. But fair play to him. I don't know. I'm sure he's calculated in everything he says, and it's a bit like Mourinho deflection and whatnot and stuff like that. And you just know that bloody hell. We went to Liverpool and we went defensive and all the rest of it. And last year, remember, we had 10 men and we were winning, and we got ripped a new one, and it was sort of like, so anyway, I think we all know what the media's like and the stories they like to generate, so let's not focus on that. But at least we got a bit of praise from Pep. So look, as well as the City game, we'll also do a brief-ish preview of our EFL third round cup tie away to Port Vale, taking place on Wednesday evening. And before we get to all of that, as always, if you can follow, subscribe, like, leave a rating, comment, all that usual jazz on the podcast apps, that's really appreciated. I do notice when the numbers go up, so I know people are doing it, so the more the merrier. And thank you very much for doing it if you've done that already. Anyway, so enough of that, and let's get on with the show. And as always, in our usual format, Jamie, what was your highlight and low light? And I put here, apart from the obvious, because I thought there was going to be more than two of us today. But I go for it. What was your highlight and low light from yesterday? And you can state the obvious, or you can go niche like I have.
I'm going to be less obvious, perhaps, and say a highlight was bringing on Eberechi Eze at half time, and the reason for that being very specifically that it is something obviously that has kind of been criticised in previous games for not being aggressive enough, not going after the game enough, and the Saka coming on would have been better had it been for a different player, because known he was playing really well first half. If he played 90, he might well have become a highlight in and of itself, because I really liked what he was doing. But clearly Madueke had some kind of knock, and Saka had to come on for him. But Eza was very much no. We need to find a way to be able to break this down. Low light is the majority of the second half, which we really kind of laid.
Second half or first half?
No, the majority. First half is what it is, right? We got shell shocked. We played within ourselves a bit for a little while. And then I thought last 10 minutes of the first half and stoppage time in the first half, we really took it to him and we had some good opportunities. I don't mind that massively. I felt the second half, there was a big period of time where it just felt like we were certainly being, we had a bit of intent there, but it felt like there's just a real lack of guile, which is that thing that we talk about so often, unfortunately. And, City were incredibly well organised, they defended incredibly well, but I've got into like a full review of the game at this stage instead of just...
No, it's fine.
But low light for me was certainly the number of times in the second half where it felt like we just really were kind of struggling to get past the first man, be a little bit more direct, play forward a bit more, kind of usual criticisms and so on. And it wasn't throughout, but it was nonetheless, it just was a little bit lackluster for me, because I felt that, City didn't do a damn thing in that second half, right? They barely did anything in the first half, but they certainly didn't do a damn thing in the second half. And it really does feel like maybe we weren't quite taking the gambles that we should have been at times.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and you're right. We will get into a bit of a deeper review and sort of scratch beneath the surface of what you just said there. So, the obvious highlights and lowlights were Martinelli equaliser being the highlight. But saying that, I hardly celebrated. I was still so pissed off at the game that I didn't. I was so annoyed at what we're going to discuss later that I was like, too bloody right we should be scoring. Bloody hell, why haven't you done this sooner, sort of thing. And I was just so annoyed. So yeah, I cheered and I was like happy, but there was no real sense of relief or sense of and all the rest of it. And actually I felt more emotive today when I watched the replay and you hear the commentator going, oh my god, what a goal, and when you see the bigger bit and all the rest of it. And actually just hearing the commentator, different commentators reacting to the goal, that gave me more of an emotion than I felt yesterday about the equaliser, because I was just still so pissed off.
That's an interesting one, because I thought if anything it would be the other way around, because yesterday I didn't get in the ground because stupidly I'd forgotten to enter the ballot, and you on the other hand were in the ground, so I'm sort of surprised, because normally if anything I would say that would be me on the outside having that reaction, but on the other hand I had a massive sense of relief and a big, I gave it an audible, shout. So it was, for me, that was a pretty.
It was bizarre,
really but you do the. I should have done the obvious highlight and left you to do everyone. You put a fucking downer on it. You know what I mean?
Well, actually, this is right. I saw someone's going. No, my highlight though, I said it was like in a niche, or just like not stating the bloody obvious, was Trossard throwing the ball at Bernardo Silva.
Didn't you even critique that and say you should have done it harder?
Well, but actually, it was a board shot, and look, Silva
at the time.
Silva is a weasel and rat-like, and is just a player that everyone, and I think even City fans, utterly dislike. But yeah, you're right. Trossard didn't throw it hard enough. He didn't hit the bullseye either, and then the way Silva went down. So this is sort of turning into low lightish, but the way Silva went down, it was pathetic. And then this is the one time that a ref decides to be pragmatic and does sensible refereeing. So instead of giving each of them a yellow card, which would have meant Silva would have been sent off for whatever, because whatever, all of a sudden, no, I'm gonna like dial it down and just like bring this and do proper.
It would have been soft, I think.
I know, but who
mind
cares?
you, his first yellow was very freaking yellow, wasn't it? I mean, that was as
yellow
as a yellow thing. Like,
yeah. So anyway, that was a highlight. That was a very funny moment at the end of the first half, and my low light. And the obvious for me, and we will definitely come on to this next, is the team selection at the beginning. But there was, but that was the obvious one. The other highlight, and this happened at Forest as well, and this grinds my gears. The ref stopping play when players are down and it's not a head injury. He doesn't have to stop it. And it happened at Forest, and he stopped it, and then the player gets up, and it's like great, you stopped the momentum. And there was a time yesterday when Saliba had the ball, and urged him not to kick it out. And the crowd was saying, "Don't you do it! Don't you dare do it, William! Don't you dare!" And so the ref saved William, because William was like, "I don't know what to do," because on the continent it's more of a thing to kick the ball out of the players down, and the ref stopped it. But and so why?
I think it
It's
used
not a
to
head
be more
injury.
here as well, to be honest. I think this is a more recent thing in the Premier League of very deliberately not, and I think it's become a thing perhaps because of how much it does get milked by some teams at certain
Yeah,
times. But I don't think it's a continental thing. And we always did that. It's just at the moment,
yeah, I
it's
agree.
always been the only chance that you didn't do that is literally if there's a current goal scoring opportunity. That was pretty much it,
Yeah,
and the player's
but
not in the way. But
But
you know,
sometimes the City players would have the ball and they didn't kick it out when it's their player. And as soon as they give it away, oh, kick it out. Yeah, it's like really just sort of like, just don't. And yeah, the fact that the ref stops it, he doesn't. I don't know why he's doing it. I'm based on what is he stopping it? Because unless it's a head injury and he's not holding his head. And I think there's now some new rule about actually if you feigning holding your head or whatever. So I don't know, but it's just like, it's just too easy to manipulate. It breaks up
yeah,
momentum, and
I
it's
do get that.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
yeah. So a bit of a low. I didn't call it out on the Forest game, but I thought, well, it's now happened 2 games in a row at home, and it's just shit. Anyway, so look, onto the lineup, and obviously this is the biggest, I think, bone of contention with across most fans, the biggest surprise. And look, okay, I think we knew if Saliba was fit, he'd come in for Mosquera. I mean, Mosquera's been brilliant, but Saliba and Gabriel are the best defensive partnership in Europe, in the world. So we're playing City at home. Thank you, Mosquera, but Saliba, you're obviously going to come back in. But yeah, obviously the biggest surprise, I think, was the combination. So we had Rice, Zubimendi, and Merino in midfield, which I don't think was too much of a surprise if Odegaard was out. But it was that in combination with Trossard. What? Go on, give me your take, your thoughts, what you thought at the time. Why do you think it happened? I don't know. What's your take on this?
So I actually think I don't think it's this negative thing that people think that it is actually with Marino. I think with Marino, I think he's looking for him to do, as I've said before, that Xhaka role of being a dual winner high up the pitch. And he's shown himself capable of scoring goals for us. He's shown himself capable of scoring goals for Spain. Um, and gives us, I think, a lot of qualities when you think about what he's like. And I don't think that we would necessarily have expected City to come out in the way that they did. Part of which, I mean, there'd have been a slightly different team probably had they not scored within 8 minutes. But certainly they were not, I think it's quite clear, especially with Pep's comments actually, that they were not coming to do a Man City and try and dominate the ball. However, I can completely understand Arteta believing that is what they're here to try and do. And it's going to be a contest. And if it's going to be a contest, Mikel Merino likes contests, right? Like that's what he does. And I think especially because he went off for Eze at half time, that's my kind of belief, is that Arteta saw not just game state and that it was, we were a goal down, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's thinking that regardless of that goal and going, well, this isn't the game that actually I thought it was going to be. And what I need now is this option instead, right? And
But
that's
but it's
kind of
more the
how I
no,
thought
no.
it is.
I get that with Marino. So the rise of Burundi Marino, I think that's where he's going. But it's the
Trossard, I've got no
combination.
fucking
It,
idea. Apart from
yeah,
the
it's
fact
the
that
combination with Trossard.
Martinelli's been a bit gash.
Yeah.
Eza, if you bring him on, because Odegaard's not there, you're probably looking for him to go central, and maybe you want Eza as a player to come on, as opposed to, maybe he's got some ideas there, and also Eza on the left, we've had a good and we've had a bad, right? Like, well, we had a good and an ineffectual. So maybe he's just thinking there. Look, Trossard did well when he came on off the bench. I actually think his contribution was greater than Martinelli's in that game. And he's thinking, well, and again, I think if you're looking at this City, kind of who City have got there, maybe I am thinking that I want a Trossard more so than a Martinelli, and then you've reserved that spot for Eza for kind of other things. You don't think he's going to be playing on the left so much. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but I do think you put out the team to go and win the game of football, and I don't particularly like the Trossard thing, to be honest, because I must admit I'd have liked to have seen Eza start out there. Simple as that.
Well, this is. I mean, it raises so many points. I mean, like, okay, what does Trossard offer that Eze can't? Eze can't.
He's a different player, and I do think he is. I do think he is actually a little bit more direct than Eze, right? Eze still remains a bit more of a playmaker on the left. He will travel with the ball, but Trossard is almost between him and Martinelli, right? He's a bit more of a tricksy, jinxy player. He's not a typical take a man on from a standing position type player, but he is nonetheless somebody who'll look to manoeuvre a player out of position more so than he will necessarily play the balls that Eza will, for instance. That's I do think he's he's not going to beat him for pace like Martinelli either. He's and actually that was extremely bloody evident a couple of times, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was about to say there were times where
there were a couple of times where I remember one time in particular, Gabriel kind of sticking one through to him. There was another time Calafiori stuck one through to him. Both times he hasn't got the legs for it, has he? He's only got short distance pace. But I don't think we'd have necessarily thought we were going to be as direct as we were. I think that whole thing was set about for a bit of a midfield battle, and maybe Trossard is a player who comes back and affects that, takes the ball in certain positions. I think Trossard's at his best actually when he's not playing that wide and floats into those pockets. Having said that, Eza does those things well as well, doesn't he?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, and you talked about he played well in Bilbao, and he's got an assist against Forest, and he got a goal and assist against Bilbao. But is this the game for meritocracy to come into play?
But Eza's also still probably getting used to us as well, right?
I know, but
new. Like we have got.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but and there's loads of things here. I mean, one point, there's loads of points you can make. One, if Odegaard is fit, Odegaard plays. So in terms of so I understand the Mourinho aspect. You're right. I think the game Arteta was expecting, and similar to Liverpool, did not happen. And Arteta likes to size up against City in midfield. Thinks tough games. There's going to be duels. And stuff like that. So he wants to size up. But if Odegaard's fit, Odegaard plays. So therefore, you're going to have Odegaard, Rice, and Zubimendi. So that sort of counteracts that argument because why not?
But against
why?
Part of the reason that game happened was also to do with that selection. I felt. I actually thought.
Yeah, look,
so that maybe he's thinking in that way. Like I do think that Mourinho and that the way that midfield three played in the Liverpool game was a big part of us having what seemed like the run of the game for a lot of it. So I just think he's looking.
No, I get that, and the Liverpool. I'm totally okay with the Liverpool game. We're away. It's Anfield. Blah blah blah. So that's fine. I even think if Odegaard's fit, I think Arteta was actually happy that Odegaard wasn't fit because they're giving the excuse to play Marino. But I think, and this is sort of so that point there. So Odegaard would have played if he's fit, but then also we are at home. We have the best defense in the league, in whatever realm you want to call it, and in front of that best defense is Zubimendi and Rice. Do you really need to add Marino to that and add Trossard to that? And it's just that combination and maybe and the other thing is, okay, like you say, City didn't play the game we were expecting. Also, I don't think we played at our best. So Calafiori in that formation is a big part of our creative structure. But you can't be relying purely on a carefree Gallavanti left back to be your primarily attacking sort of or creative outlets. You need a bit more than that, and it just I just think the fans feel there's an opportunity. This is not prime City either. This is and if you look at their team as well, it's not that great. You got O'Reilly on one side, Kusanov on another. They got Silva, Reinders, Foden. This is not prime City. This is not the Giants.
No,
and
what you've got is a bunch of very good footballers that you've drilled.
Yes,
and they came here. I swear to God, I mean, they came here actually. I was surprised at just how, they came here organised like a Bournemouth team before Bournemouth got Evan Nielsen and got decent. You know what I mean? They came here like Eddie Howe's Bournemouth when they were, really good, well organised, but actually not very good going forward or anything. And that really did surprise me somewhat. And also the discipline of some of the players in there, including like Haaland, for instance. And the fact there was zero press, that was the main thing. It wasn't that they sat deep and pressed out. It was that they pretty much just sort of, sat deep and was zero pressure, right?
Yeah.
Really zero pressure. And that is a hard thing for this Arsenal to deal with a lot of the time. I do think we are, and it's probably a bit of an interesting thing for Arteta in general. We can talk about teams having changed the way they play against us a little bit. I think teams are actually changing across the Premier League a little bit. I think that this season, I'm going to be really interested, and it might be that I'm turn out to be completely and utterly wrong, but it feels like there's a lot less pressure around the league in general. There's a lot less kind of high press going on. I don't know if that's the case, but I want to go and have a look at the statistics.
Well, it's very clear we're trying to draw teams, and we get further and further back. It's that foot on the ball thing that Saliba does, that even Rare does, and they're dragging back.
They didn't blink. They didn't blink. They
They
went
not hugely.
one single presser at a time. The vast
Yeah,
majority of them. Nobody. So normally when you've got those triggers and you go
yeah,
right now, 3 go.
yeah,
You'll kind of send one, and then when you see that chink because somebody's panicked a little bit or they've turned the wrong way with the ball, that's when you then go brilliant trigger. Everybody goes
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Nobody ever did that for City, really.
No,
There were barely any moments, and that is something that City used to, do all the time. So they're very, very, very passive, and that was really, really interesting to see because
and,
I didn't expect them to be that passive. So
no,
I
and in
understand
terms
a
of that,
lot of this selection. I don't get the Trossard one, as you say, but
no,
I can also see, at the end of the day, you're looking at a huge amount of talent in this squad now.
yeah,
And I do think we do lose sight sometimes of how good some of the individuals are. And like Trossard is a player
yeah. I know.
if you went back a couple of years ago, you're not necessarily saying put Ezra on the left ahead of Leo Trossard or whatever, right? And there's a little bit of the new toy about Eberet Eze as well. If I'm completely honest with you, I love the signing too. I still don't know that he is quite as good as everybody seems to make out sometimes. If I'm honest, I think he's got a fantastic set of tools which are really complementary to how we would like to be able to play a lot of the time. But I still think like you've got to temper this stuff. We are a squad where our worst players are not that much worse
no.
than PSA. I'm sorry, but they're not. Like he's an extreme, and I hope he's going to be the absolute world beater for us. But I don't think that you actually, if you're saying that Leo Trossard's like, useless or anything.
No, I don't think anyone's saying that, and no, I think you're right. And I don't think anyone's useless. It's maybe the approach, the mindset, the combinations, and things like that. And look, I was prepared to give Arteta the benefit of the doubt. Any of his starting 11, whatever. He's obviously picking a lineup with a tactic in mind, but it is just that you're at home and all the various things you need to. I feel that. And having and this is a bit of post hoc analysis, but after what you've seen, it very much looked like, and how the first half turned out and how the second half turned out, it did very look like this was the wrong decision. There was just something missing. We just didn't have. We should be trying to impose ourselves. Who are we? Who are Arsenal going to be? Who are Arsenal going to impose themselves on this game? And yes, the idea of finishers and maybe it's the talk of the moment is great, but maybe it's just important to start the game and win the game early, and you finish it in a different way with Nordgaard or with OSL. You don't be. And I thought we were moving away from the margins and having this idea potentially of like, oh, we'll hold them, we'll contain them, we won't give them a sniff, and then we'll finish them off later in the game, from whatever time. Then you're relying on the margins again.
Is
And
that
surely
what we're doing though? I don't think that is what we're doing. I see this point being made all the time, and I think it's a reflection upon a game as opposed to actually seeing necessarily what might be there. I don't think that that's an unbalanced defensive lineup in any way, shape, or form. Like I think that's actually,
but
I think
it
the way that
not
we
in
set
terms of.
ourselves up, the positions that we were in, and the way that we had possession, I think that we very much went there. We very much tried to win that game, but again, like just certainly the Trossard thing is not anything other than just that's a choice. And I can see reasons. I mean, he is the lock pickiest of the options on the left. He is the tight space guy. He just didn't have a particularly good day in tight spaces, unfortunately. And I don't think he was terrible either. I just think, unfortunately, down the left in particular, we looked for him to do things that he wasn't ever going to be able to do, which is, to try and get him behind and kind of beat people to the first ball and whatever. Whereas, if it was a little bit of a different game, as I say, he can be very lockpicky, and I like him in a lot of those situations. But I don't see at all that we were looking to like nick the game. I think
No, I don't think it was a case of nicking, but it's that it's setting up not to lose and then go and win it instead of setting up to
which I hear a huge amount. Gary Neville, I think, went on about that as well. No, so Jamie Carragher, I think, went on.
Well, I haven't. I came home last night and turned Red Zone
Jamie
on.
Carragher was talking that way as well about setting up not to lose. I'm not really that sure about that. And again, I think people hinge a lot of things on the Marino selection on that. But the Marino selection is a guy who also has been banging goals, gives you a certain set of qualities, and winning the ball high up the pitch is potentially how you score goals as well. So like, there's and that also has to be a bloody balance. But I don't know. And it's funny because at the same time, I feel like I'm justifying and defending Mikel Arteta a huge amount. Whereas actually, if I'm honest, there's been, over the last few weeks, my mood towards Arteta has been actually, I'm not feeling like he has totally got there. I'm more unsettled on the guy in general. I feel he's got more to prove than he necessarily has been.
Well,
but at the same time, that specifically, I just don't agree with this idea that we are going out to just like eke a win. I don't think that's what it is. I think we haven't got the full fluidity. I think we're still trying to get that fluidity, still trying to find combinations and see what works for Vicky Gyökeres in particular. And that's, if you want me to be really, really blunt on what I really would have liked to have seen in this game, not particularly
Kai Havertz.
Gyökeres, but Kai Havertz, 100%.
Yeah.
Desperately wanted Kai Havertz throughout the game.
Yeah.
I really
look, it's obvious that we're missing him, and I think he's a bigger miss than we expect.
A couple of bits, the drop in deep, being the interchange with certain players to allow them into those spaces. Trossard, for instance, is a better player with Kai Havertz about, in my opinion. I think it's no doubt one of the reasons why Trossard drops off a little bit whenever he's not there, because the two of them like to swap position a bit and allow. But mainly Havertz goes to the right, and that allows Saka to go in, or it overloads there, whatever. And there's loads of things that Kai does really well. But in particular, he also uses physicality better than Viktor does. And we had a lot of aerial balls as well that Kai is a hell of a lot better with too. So yeah, it is what it is. But genuinely, I think I don't think that was a team set out to not lose. It was, but only in the respect that you're trying to win. So therefore, by definition,
of course. Look, I'm not with this. He's out to draw. He's out not to win and all that stuff. And he thinks he's putting out the team that will get him the result that he wants. I just think there's a lot of feeling that at the way the game panned out. And look, if you compare first half to second half and the players on the first half and the second half, there's chalk and cheese in terms of intent and in terms of how we played. And I think that is what that's what frustrates a lot of people to think, well, why couldn't you do that from the beginning? Really, why was that? Did you really need to be this cautious, this risk reverse? I saw someone say we're a team that potentially likes to frustrate and bait rather than attack, which is, I think, very much our first half performance. And if you frustrate and bait in the first half, and then we attack in the second. So maybe there is a game plan there. It's just a lot of the things around this. It just feels like we could have done better. We could have done more, and and also what killed it is going behind 1-0, which basically scuppers the game plan. But then those are those margins that if you're going to be playing on those margins, if you're going to be relying on keeping a clean sheet, shit happens, and then you got to that. But look, we'll move on.
Just trying to physically and technically dominate teams. And I think if you listen to the language that's constantly being used, and Rice said in his post-match interview, Arteta said the dominant word comes up a lot, right? And I think that there is and that came up after Liverpool as well, that we dominated a large part of the game.
But passive domination. This was a lot of passive domination, as in City letting us have the ball. We did have.
But I think
overall we had 67%.
Is that we earned that because we were because we were physically and technically dominant. and therefore we will have the ball. And if we have, and it all reminds me a little bit of Roberto Martinez and his ethos when he was at Swansea City in the Championship, which was if you have the ball, they won't score, and we will have more chance of scoring. Football's as simple as that. Was something that again, I don't know if these are the exact words, but that was to paraphrase him at one point with his interviews. That is also, again, that was the kind of Barcelona-ish kind of mantra, and it's that thing. And I think the difference between us and some of those teams is instead of flighty little buggers in midfield, we do so with the physical domination as well. And that's almost the innovation of Arteta, is to go, they're technically and physically dominant as opposed to just technically dominant. But that's the way I see it. I think he's trying to just, and I don't think it's about trying to, inch wins or whatever. I think it's about literally being, we will dominate you regardless of who you are. And as a result, we will get the opportunities to score. But I don't think it's necessarily working in a lot of games. That's a different point. Whether it's working or not, I don't think is a question. It didn't work for us against City, and it didn't work for us against Liverpool because we'd taken 1 point out of 6.
Well, on this sort of point, and before we move on, is like, there's an interesting stat that saw Arsenal's results with Mourinho and Rice starting together in midfield. Played 12, won 3, drawn 5, and lost 4. So, and now look, having looked at the games, there's a lot of mitigation in there, but also you can't mitigate your way out of everything sort of thing there. So it's just pause for thought, causation, correlation, all that. Don't know, but that's a bit of a damning statistic if you've played them together with those two in midfield and you've only won 3 games.
I think we also in a huge number of those games had Thomas Partey at right back, and
and that's right. This is part of the mitigation.
I haven't gone back to take a look at what they were, but when I remember,
there was
primarily
when we lost 2-0 away to Bournemouth. Okay, Saliba gets sent off.
That's Partey at right back.
There would have been, Liverpool 2-2. That's when our defence had all disappeared, had been injured or had to go off. Newcastle away 1-0. It's Newcastle. Everton 0-0. Brighton 1-1. Dodgy penalty. Aston Villa at home 2-2 when we're 2-0 up. Everton at home 1-1. And then Paris Saint-Germain, and then losing to Liverpool.
And you've got Rice at 6 in those games primarily as well.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, either way, it's not the setup. It's not what we asked them to do. It's not what it just feels somewhat. These things do kind of bother me sometimes when you bring along with the results when this person's absent. And
no, I know, but it's.
Those ones really
at some point,
it's like, what, better player injured, team worse. Fucking hell.
I guess you're trying to see. I guess you're trying to see patterns, trends. Look, I said I'm not down. I'm not down on Mourinho. He's my player of the season last year, and not down on that. It's more the approach, the thinking, the Trossard-Mourinho combination. It's those two together. In isolation, I'd take it. Together, it's a different thing, and that's it. But again, it's the way it panned out, and so on. And look, moving on to our reaction to the actual game itself, and I think Arteta summed it up very nicely. If you can't win, then at least don't lose. And then he goes on to say, we created an unbelievable moment to score, but the overall feeling, because I know how hard it is to do what we've done on the pitch against City, with that level, with that coach, I wanted more reward for the team. And look, we obviously all did. We're all Arsenal fans. We wanted to win. But if I'm going to take any positives from that game, it is the fact that we did dominate City. We forced them back, forced them to play a way that they didn't want. Okay, it was a bit passive in places, but that's because of the way we forced them to do it. And we kept on going. We found a way not to lose. And as he said, if you can't win, then don't lose. So that was really important. And then at least Arteta recognised there was an issue, like in your highlight, making the changes to fix it, and it was a good thing. It worked relatively well. We were dominant fairly well. We managed to attack, and it sort of then petered out a bit, and then we got a second wind. But City did defend well. They bunkered down for a 1-0 win after they got their goal, and they were playing 5 at the back at one point. You were talking about discipline. I was seeing Foden dropping into the back 5 to nullify, I think, Calafiori threat, and that's just the way it went. So yeah,
they ended up looking like a Tony Pulis team, right? I mean, not only did they end up with about 6 defenders on the pitch, but like everybody was, that, and they were like that for a fair amount of the time, and it's difficult. I mean, the whole game is shaped by an 8th-minute goal, isn't it? And that 8th-minute goal is a mess of a goal as well. I mean, that is one of the worst that we've conceded in a while. Just, the absolutely fundamentally boggled my mind as to why Gabriel got himself mixed up in that, to be honest. I know he loves to be front foot and defensive, but then somebody needs to cover him if he does. But he didn't really have a business being in the first place, I didn't think, to be honest. So it's a bit of nobody's covered themselves in glory. They've all gone a bit hell for leather, and it just feels like the occasion got the most of them all. They've all decided they've got to dominate and batten. And again, my point around Mourinho and what game we thought this was going to be. You've got to win all the battles in midfield. And you can imagine Arteta's given them the old, every time in midfield, you dominate, you win your battles, you win the collision, you win everything. Winning the collision's rugby union, sorry, but nonetheless, but it's kind of the same point. But you need to dominate and win every battle that you have, and ultimately, or duel. That's the word I'm looking for.
That's the one. Yeah.
And I just feel like that's what we set up for. And then we get, about 3 players get sucked into somewhere they don't need to be. The left back is one of these things that I've always said I do worry about, is that we don't have much recovery when Ricardo Calafiori's there, and much positional.
It stemmed from the fact that he was the one taking a cross almost virtually from the byline. And it was a terrible cross. So it was a terrible cross. It was sort of, I don't know who it was aiming at, where it was going for. It fell to the edge of the box. It was just a poor cross, poor execution. Look, that can happen, and it's on the edge of the City box, and you don't expect 20 seconds later to Haaland to score. But then you're right, it's a bit of a head tennis. No one can get control of the ball, and I love the point about in the mindset. Oh, we got to. Go in hard, attack.
It's 8 minutes into the game and nobody's
win the duels,
and everybody has just got in their head, I must
pumped.
win the duel. And Big Gab, love him to bits.
Yeah.
As I've said before, best centre half in the world for me at this point in time, and he just absolutely goes hell for leather at something he doesn't need to. And then as soon as they broke there, and he just went, these are the wrong 2 players. These are the wrong 2 players at this stage. This is going to be as clinical as it gets, and it was. And
it was a very good goal. It was a really good goal from their point of view. And watching it in the stands, it was really odd. I didn't have the bigger picture. I was just literally watching the 2 runners with the ball. So it was Reinders and Doku, and then just out of nowhere, I said to the, how is it a 3v? How's it gone from a 2v2 to a 3v2? And then having rewatched it. Gabriel's not getting back chasing Haaland. Haaland, he's for a big man. He's got pace, and just suddenly he appears
because they've been in that dual pursuit. They've got to turn and they've got to accept. Like, there's no way you can't recover in those positions. Like, even it, to be completely frank, it could have been a couple of 35-year-old hoofers going up the other way, and because the way that you've committed yourself and where your momentum's going, you've lost 2 seconds immediately, and that's not that's 2 seconds you're not going to get back. So. Yeah. It is what it is, but that unfortunately just sets such a tone, because it allowed City to do what I think they were planning to come here and be hard to beat, more so than kind of
and smash and grab.
But nonetheless, that was fucking brilliant. I mean, if anything, it might have been a little bit early for us, but this is great. Like, they're going to take a good 10-15 minutes to get themselves any semblance of game going on, because that's what happens in those situations. We've seen it a million times. You get the smash and grab. Do you remember when it used to happen all the bloody time? The majority of the time it's because Aaron Ramsdale had booted it to some geezer who plays for the other team. Or either that or Zinchenko. One of the 2, wasn't it? But it was a fairly regular feature of a certain time. And those smash and grabs, we would always do the same thing. If it takes 15, 20 minutes, it knocks the wind out of you when it's that early. And that's what it was. I must say, and I'm interested in this, by the way, it sounded to me from home, and bear in mind, I live within earshot of the stadium. Obviously, I hear the crowd a lot of the time. If I have to be at home when a game's going on, it sometimes does me tits in, to be honest, because I'll have the window up and I'm like, bollocks, I'm not there. But I just was not getting noise at all at the stadium yesterday. Windows fully open, and normally I've got roars, I've got bits going on, whatever, and it just and on the TV it sounded flat as well, but you can never really tell by the TV. But I normally get a sense of what's going on, even just from what's going on over there, and it sounded flat as hell.
I think it was. I think you're right. I think everyone was so confused by the lineup that we were trying to force the atmosphere, and then they score after 8 minutes, and everyone's going, "See," or "It's flat," or just the whole first half is just. I mean, Arsenal Man City is not a good watch for Arsenal Man City fans, let alone neutrals. You know,
It's an anxious
it's
one. Yeah, I get you.
it's never. It's not a Liverpool game where it's to and fro and all the rest of it. Watching Arsenal Man City is dull as dishwater for the neutral. Not that we care about the neutral, but even as an Arsenal fan, you're watching it. You're seeing that there was zero. There was nothing to get excited about. Because City have gone right. Okay, fine. We've got our goal and things, and there was nothing Arsenal, and not until
And
the
then it's
last
just
five
a chess
minutes.
game. I get you. I mean, it did. It
and,
just
and
became a chess.
and then the last 5 minutes when suddenly we started getting Madueke more involved, getting him down the right flank. We started to create chances. We started to do something. Saliba had a header that just went over. Donnarumma punches away, and Calafiore has a nice shot from the edge of the box. Madueke then shoots near post. The keeper makes the same. So it wasn't until the last 5 minutes that a bit of momentum. And then the second half, the noise raised because of the substitutions we made. But just on a couple of points, I thought it was one on their goal. I thought it was ironic that they scored because we overcommitted. So that's not particularly cautious. It's also Arsenal Man City bingo because Haaland scored, and that's like 5 goals and 2 assists in 7 Premier League games. So he was odds on to score around that. And just in terms of our attacking prowess, do you know who's taken the most shots for Arsenal this season?
I would imagine it's Martin Zubimendi.
Calafiore with 10.
Calafiore.
He's at
I wouldn't be surprised if
Calafiore's.
Zubi's second, because I think he's had about. I mean, he scored twice, and he had about 3
Yeah,
shots in this one, including
yeah.
the outrageous attempt at a bicycle kick that I absolutely.
That's hard. If it had connected,
If
that would
we
have
if
been
we counting that
beautiful.
as a shot, I think he's on about 7 at this point.
Right,
Right?
it's an air shot, I think. Uh, but yeah, so look, as you said, the first half went as it was, and
I think this is why the
yeah,
second half was really disappointing to me. The green shoots were there, particularly at the end, but like in general, the fact that City weren't doing anything, it was like, right, we're gonna get a point in time now. We just need to get in at half time. Was the way that I kind of felt about that first half in general. And then we had the green shoots kind of 10 minutes before the whistle was blown. I thought, right, we'll really come out for it second half, and then
well,
we started really well the second half, I thought, and I was really up for it. And then the reason I call it disappointment is just how much it was for a fair while after that for me, where we just we just were a little bit too ponderous whilst doing it, unfortunately.
Well, well, at least we made the changes early, so that was a good thing. And on the Madueke thing, we did. I think Arteta said after the game that he felt something, and it took a, he took a knock early in the half, and then he felt something, and there's pictures of him hobbling off down the tunnel. Now the news broke out today potentially that he's gone for scans. There were rumours about an ACL. But I thought the way he went off, that's not an ACL. But who's to know how these things manifest itself? So, but it seems like it's nothing too serious. Bit of a spell on the sidelines, but to be confirmed. But our injury curse strikes again. One in, and the 1 in 1 out policy still applies.
I mean,
So
he is somebody that
fingers.
comes with injury concerns, though. In fairness, not matter what.
Well, you did post this. You, you
His
you shared on the
time in
group today.
Holland, he's always
Yeah,
he was. We had a huge spell out not long before when PSV came to play us.
yeah,
When Madueke was still there out there, God knows we played them a few times actually over the last few years,
yeah,
haven't we? But when
yeah.
they came to play us, I think might have still been in not even in the Champions League, but in the Europa. I can't remember which one it was.
No, we played them in the Champions League. I think in group
Yeah, but I
stages.
think we played him in Europa as well, didn't we? No, I just
Oh,
can't
okay.
remember either way. When he was against us anyway, he'd just come back from a huge spell out at that time. I think it was like his second or third competitive match back.
Okay.
And because he's a fantastic player. That always kind of kept me eye. But he's had quite a lot, and he just got fairly fortunate. I think at Chelsea, all he had was like one spell on the sidelines, which wasn't a huge deal, and you wouldn't necessarily have noticed it because he wasn't playing game in, game out for Chelsea. But certainly his time in Holland, and I think even prior to that, he has been known for it. So, hopefully those are the kind of injuries that a lot of the time explosive players pick up when they are at the age he was of 18, 19, 20, because they're still developing some of that muscle. But nonetheless, I wouldn't be surprised if there are a few.
Well, I mean, yeah. Again, if this is more of a ligament sort of injury, then that's more down to impact or how you're landing, as opposed to you got a muscle issue or something like that. So that you can forgive this as in the injury prone. I don't think the ligament injuries are due to injury prone proneness, if that's a word. but we'll see. But it seems like it won't be too bad. But still, it's like, geez, can we not catch a break? But anyway, let's see. But luckily, Saka's back in time. So yeah, we brought Saka and Eze on, Marino and Madueke off, which I think everyone, was pleased to see. Well, at least seen Saka, and I said it made a difference. Zubi had that shot in the 48th with Curler just over. Eze has a shot straight down the keeper's throat, and we were trying things. There was, there was Donnarumma. He flapped at something, a few times. So we were putting them under pressure.
Saka, I thought was really good, and he had that
Yeah,
impact thing that he did, didn't he? Where he immediately,
but then it went really quiet
he
for
did.
that 20 minutes, half an hour, 20 minutes in the
I
middle
thought
of
most of the team
that
did at
time.
that point, to be honest. But I thought,
Yeah,
certainly he did that thing where he comes on and he just goes, hang about. There's real
yeah,
class here on grass. You know what I mean? You
yeah.
kind of go, Madueke's been great and he's been chaos and running at players and stuff for, 10 or 15 minutes the first half. And you're like, oh, look, but he is different. He is classy. You just immediately kind of feel that, don't you? But also at the same time, he has just come back from injury. He has been inserted into this game, and you can't expect the world of him, can you? But
Um, yeah, yeah. No, but yeah, he looked good. And actually, the closest the goal came was actually again from Donnarumma flapping around. It ends up at our end. Haaland has a weak shot, and then Eze, brilliant. Eze tracking back, which is good to see. Clears it into Rice and almost scores an own goal. Luckily, it bounced over, but it was like, well, I didn't realize how close it was, and I saw it. I said, oh my gosh! It's like,
yeah,
it was one of those ones where he's sort of clearing it with his preferred foot, but across the body. That if he just swung with his weaker foot, that it would just boot it out into row Z. But then then um, then there was a chance on 60. Gyökeres couldn't get his feet out of the ground, or his studs got stuck. It was a lovely cross by Trossard, and it was there for a tap in. He just couldn't get his
I
feet.
thought his lack
And
of technique and balance at times was a little bit telling in this. If I'm completely honest with you, there's a
yeah,
few occasions where he just. It's funny, isn't it? You've got a whole team of technicians of really, really technical, boot on the football players,
yeah.
including most of the back line as well. And he did look a few times like his first touch really does let him down a little bit if it's not straight in front of him. He's
Okay, I
running
mean,
onto it. It's different, but yeah. I don't.
go on. What's your take on Gyökeres at the moment? So look, he's had 3 matches with
Scored three
0
goals in
shot.
5 games. One of them's a penalty. He's got time to settle in. We need to use him better. I didn't think he was in the right positions against City the vast majority of the game. I do definitely see that whole. I don't think he's aerially. I don't think. I mean, that's the main thing that I missed was just somebody, to be honest, to be like Kai and have the strength and the will to beat somebody in the air, which I'm not
Mm,
sure I always thought Kai was going to be when he turned up for us, but he does have it. And yeah, I felt like when we were starting to get crosses in and stuff, I'm kind of thinking, to be honest, I could do Marino up there right now.
yeah,
There's
well,
couple of
Marino's a better
genuine
header of the
times
ball.
when we were starting to camp a little bit and starting trying to poke something through. I'm kind of thinking, I think I prefer Marino with his back to goal or in the air, and that's the thing. Gyökeres, I don't think is he was very busy, put a lot of effort in, and he wasn't god awful, but it's a little bit like I think he's a little bit second rate Haaland, right? So Haaland, when he has these sorts of games for City, sometimes he looks a little bit ineffectual because if the ball doesn't arrive somewhere where he's going to lamp it in or edit in it, that sort of he doesn't necessarily look like he's doing a great deal, but he is. a much greater technician than Gyökeres. He's more powerful and he's better in the air. So you have a little bit more of the all-round threat and a little bit more to offer in a few other game styles. Gyökeres sort of does one thing very similar to him and then not really much of the other stuff. And that, I'll be honest, I'm really not sold at the minute. The thing that massively, kind of calms me on that front is the fact that it could have been Benjamin Sesko anyway. Who doesn't seem to be doing a great deal.
There is an argument that you swap them around and they'll be having exactly the same seasons, as in Gyökeres will be shocking for Man United and Sesko will have got a couple of goals and done all right. Because
Gyökeres would be better for Manchester United, unfortunately, because I think that front three is there to do a little bit more and play the balls a little bit more. If you look at
maybe
Mbeumo's relationship with Visser and before that with Ivan Toney, I think potentially they might thrive a little bit more off some of the balls that they hit early balls. United hit early balls on a regular basis. Fernandes hits early balls. We don't really do those early balls. This wasn't the game for it. So this is not,
no, exactly.
But the point is more that United have teams coming at them will have more opportunity to play the early balls. United don't have many teams that are going to do what a bunch of teams are going to do to us.
Yeah, no, true.
And that's kind of the point where I think that might work out a little bit better for them. But again, I'm sort of speculating, and you know me, I really don't like to draw too many conclusions too early on anything. So I'm not concluded on Gyökeres in any way.
No,
I'm not
it's
positive
still early
about it. Let's put it that way.
It's still early days, and look, to be honest, it wasn't in the plan for Havertz to scupper his knee and be out till November. So I think we would have eased Gyökeres in more gently for games like Liverpool, for games Man United opening game season yesterday. Havertz would have been great, and I think we're missing we're missing him. And the thing of it. And look, we are learning how to play with him. He's learning how to play in this league. It is going to be tougher. But if he ends up just being a flat track bully that scores 15 to 16 goals a season and wins us those games, like against Forest, like against Leeds, by score, and stuff like that, and then the big games, Havertz comes in, or imagine Gyökeres coming on for like 20, 30 minutes at the end,
I think the squad's winning us those games anyway. I think we will. I think we will primarily in those games win those games now in a way that we weren't last season.
Yeah,
purely because last season we lost a lot, or we drew a lot of those games based on the lack of attacking talent that we had available to us, or the amount of games that they had played, and the lack of substitutes bench that we had. We have that now. That bench is phenomenal for those games. I'm not necessarily sure. Again, and I'm in a bit of a negative moment with him at the minute. I was never in the run up before we signed him. He was never the fella I wanted. I never particularly liked the look of him when he was at Sporting. I got really excited about it when we signed him, just because we'd signed him. And now I think I'm very much, and I think it's, Eze, unfortunately, he's done him no favours at all, because he's taken all of the enthusiasm out of that signing, I think, to be completely honest. And even then, as I've said, I've never quite been sure that we needed Ebi Eze, but I think the point where I think that we do need him is more of we just need a wealth of attacking talent at all times with a bit of versatility. Gyökeres is like the least versatile and sort of the most raw, and he's not going to develop more stuff. He's just ultimately, there's a question of, are we going to learn to use him? Are we going to use him really well? Or is he just going to end up being this guy that, he probably will still score 15 goals anyway, just because he'll have enough opportunities against Shite. But no, I don't think that is. I think what we want is...
It might be, like you just said, it's about
I think in the majority of the absolutely say, like, overall, for the majority of positions, we already have top game difference makers in the other positions. Kai can be in these games, but I still think if you're going to look for a 9 that gave us something we truly didn't have at times, it is somebody that's just dominant in every arena. And not, on the other hand, I did think he looked like a real passenger today, United and Liverpool. I think in 3 of the 5 games, and also half of Leeds. So I think he's looked a passenger a fair amount of the time. I think he's looked very unimpactful, to the extent that yesterday at times I felt like we were a man down in attack. And that's not the right thing. You need... it doesn't need to be Erling Haaland. He needs to
No,
be,
who
but I
is?
don't feel like we're a man down in attack, because I think that didn't feel like the game for him at all. And if
No.
he has too many of those games that aren't the game for him, and you're playing a man down, it's exactly the same as Gabs at times. There are times with Gabs where I feel like we'd be better off without you in the team. Literally only just the other side of these two great moments he's had, we had a game. We had the Liverpool game, and I felt that we would have been better at times just not having him there. And
Well,
that's
and
what I
then
felt
this,
about Gyökeres
and,
yesterday. That despite all his effort,
and this is why I think Kai being injured was not part of the plan. So I think we're making do with what we can, and look, he's learning on the job. We're learning on the job. We're trying to adapt. And actually, there is this one point. It's sort of like I think Arteta's still trying to figure things out in terms of he's got all these tools. He's got the solutions to hand. He's got all the solutions he needs in this squad. And it said like Gyökeres is going to be part of that squad that wins this game that last year that we were drawing. And if he scores 15 and then Saka gets his goals and Havertz gets his goals and Madueke gets his goal, blah blah, Eze, all the rest of it, we are more of the collective. And in terms of this summer, there actually wasn't that all rounder. So you had Ekitike, Sesko, or Gyökeres, and we put up all our money. We'll put our money into the 65 million Gyökeres basket, and I think we will get value from that. It's just very early days. But in terms of
there aren't enough.
and
We know that, and we know that the deal to bring him in has not been the most significant outlay. I think they even include
no,
wages as well. So like it's what it is, isn't it? It's not like, but it at the moment I'm just not positive about it. I'm looking at it, and even his 3 goals do not really. He scores goals against Leeds that I absolutely know he can score, and it was great to see, and I really enjoyed it. But other than that, it's all been very meh. And at the same time, I've reminded people a million times about the fact I've sat there and watched a bunch of strikers not score for a bunch of games for the Arsenal, or a load of club legends not fit in right away. Bobby Pires took a little bit of time. Thierry Henry famously took a bit of time. Dennis
we know
Bergkamp
Birkin.
took so long
Yeah,
until the Southampton game.
yeah.
There's plenty of these things, I know, but it just I hoped to see a little bit more heartening stuff, and I just feel like what I'm actually watching is actually disheartening. It feels like, for me at least anyway, I don't know what qualities he's actually truly bringing that we don't have
I
we needed.
I can think. I think that, but it's a dual thing. I think we need to also get the best out of him, and it's I think it's the two
He couldn't
lots of
hold up the
people
ball.
trying to.
He can't hold the ball. He couldn't bring others into play. That's the biggest thing.
But also maybe that's not his job, and then we're not finding him. So look, who knows?
It's
But
got
I
to
think
be.
that
It's got to be in this team. We need an Olivier Giroud, is what I personally think about this team, if I'm totally honest with you, mate. Or at least we need that option off the bench. But I want somebody who's going to be able. We've got phenomenal attacking talent that at times doesn't have anybody to bounce the ball off. Doesn't have anybody to dominate a defender and take away some attention. Doesn't have the ability to be able to get on the end of a cross. I want Olivier Giroud, if I'm honest.
well, he's
I
still
also want
playing, isn't
Thierry
he?
Henry. I want them all, but
He's in France. I think Olivier Giroud's in France. He might
he
be
is.
available at
He's
a
scoring for
price.
Nice the other day. I'd take it.
Yeah, but I think this is part of just the wider thing, and I think look, the injuries have not helped. So I think the plan would have been we've got all these great new attacking players. We've got we have got the best defense, and we've got such great defensive talent. And now we've got all this attacking talent in, and I think the idea was to bring it in gradually, just to one here, one there, not make wholesale changes, not have to rely so readily on these players so they adapt and we work and so on. And so we've had to rush a few things, change the way we're doing things, like Saka going out, no Havertz, Odegaard. So again, you're missing these primary players, and again, a rising tide lifts all boats. So imagine how good he might be if he had Odegaard and Saka there, or if he's coming off the bench and having to not take all the pressure because Havertz is there.
He's got a huge amount of talent around him. I don't
No,
think
I know he has, but he hasn't got the optimal talent around him, or he hasn't got the best. And so yes, he's got talent, but you're starting a front line of Eze, who hasn't played for us, Madueke doesn't play for us. So all of a sudden you've got 2 people trying to learn the system, and trying him. So I think it's just a combination of things, and it's not excuses, but it's and this is where it's on
It's
Arteta.
specifically the qualities though that I'm looking at. It's not the. So
Yeah,
again, it's not the. I don't want the guy. I've sat there. last season I sat there and defended Mikel Merino early on, and I kept
Yeah.
saying I can see the qualities that he brings. I don't think he's playing well when he first came in. I don't think he's doing a great deal, but I can see why we've got him. I can see what he's got that other players don't. And I kept looking at it and going, he's got a lot of Xhaka. There's also a lot of Xhaka who's missing as well. But
Yeah.
he's got a lot of that sort of quality that means that he could do. I can see why he's brought him in. I just don't see it at the moment. That's the issue. I think, don't get me wrong, he might be in that 1-on-1 against the defender, bearing down on a keeper, the best player in the Arsenal team. I actually don't think he is. I think Bukayo Saka is. But nonetheless, I don't know that the rest of what he does is a legitimate quality.
Yeah.
That's the issue for me. I'm just looking at the attributes almost and just going, for me, at
Yeah.
the moment,
No, I get it.
the attributes don't stack up to something that we actually need or want there.
I get it.
And again, there's a whole thing about we could learn to use him and use what he has got to such an extent that he's a frightening striker. But I don't really believe that's that much of a thing for top clubs. I actually think generally you look for the player that can do it all. And I just, so I'm negative on that at the moment. That's me. I think that's the most negative I've ever been on this podcast about.
I think it has.
I don't think I've ever moaned this much, and especially about an individual player. I hate doing it. It's just, well, apart from Martinelli, there's been, but I can't do that about him anymore, can I?
But
He's been
well, we'll get on to that.
But I'm really worried, and that's another game. Yeah. It's just, I think, straw that broke the camel's back in a bunch of games where I'm a little bit like I just worry.
You need convincing. So look, and look, he's one of the many tools that I think Arteta needs to figure out how to use to get the best out of this team. And like I said, I think he's still trying to figure it out. And let's hope he learns quick, because he's sort of learning on the job, so to speak, and how to fix this. And look, some teams get away with it, and some teams don't. I mean, our start also hasn't helped. So we're playing like 3 of our toughest fixtures, of the season, etc., etc. So let's just see. But back to the game. Yeah, and you mentioned him. So look, we did get an equaliser. So look, we, and actually Arteta went full Arsene Wenger. Took Timber off, brought Martinelli on, but also then he took Trossard off and Winery on, and in the 93rd minute, we did get I think deserved equaliser. I think, no team deserved to win that game. I don't think outright, and I don't think anyone particularly deserved to lose. So, and look, I think we got that equaliser. It was a fantastic ball over the top by Eze, and Martinelli, either coming from out left to the middle or running through the middle. He makes a great run, beats the defense, well onside. First touch, fantastic. Second touch, even better, to dink it over, 10'5" Donnarumma, and it just took so long to just go in.
So
it was sort of
painful,
like,
wasn't it? I felt like the ball was hanging in the air forever. It was painful.
It was, but and good on him, and it's sort of a very typical Martinelli goal to make a clean break through the middle. Like, we talked about it last week against Bilbao when he made that run, and then in Spain he's made 2 similar goals. And this is an interesting conversation. It's more like, and it was sort of like, we brought him in, I think, as a centre forward, and then he went out left and did okay, but then he sort of like tapered off and has plateaued or isn't delivering to it.
Gabs was a left winger when he came over from.
Oh, was he a left winger? Okay, but we saw
Italiano. He was
But we saw potential as a centre forward, and
a lot, I think, because his idol was Ronaldo, and he used to always talk about he plays left. He likes to play like Ronaldo, but he likes to play so that he's being a striker a lot of the time, and he wants to be.
But it's sort of a bit like who used to be a really good centre forward for us that hang out left and then went sprinting through the middle.
Yeah. So Thierry, there's been a couple, really, and let's face it.
So look,
the very best of them. Nicholas Bentner being the very best of them.
Of course, God. But yeah, look, fair play to him. Okay, goal midweek. This guy, he's maybe this is his role in the team. This is what he does. He's gonna be that impact player off the bench, and look, and you can't knock his record when he scores. So here's a stat for you. Martinelli has scored in 47 games for Arsenal, and when he's netted, the Gunners are undefeated. 38 wins, 9 draws. So if Nelly scores, we don't lose. So that's such a stat. But yeah, no, I'm really pleased for him. I think we all really want him to do well. We know he's had a bit of a downtime, but maybe this is where he gets his confidence back. This is where we can leverage him to his most. And again, it comes back to that squad depth. It comes to that players off the bench. A bit, this idea of finishers. I don't want to always be relying on them. It's great when we've got them, but you don't want always that to be the reliant sort of dominant sort of how should we say tactic. But yeah, fair play to him, and 2 goals in a couple of games, 2 very important goals, and everyone was celebrating apart from me. So
I mean, it was great. It was a brilliant moment for him. And in fairness, like
yeah,
I think Declan Rice said in his post match again, he was talking about the fact that some players hang their heads a little bit when they go on the bench and whatever. And he said, he's there doing big moments, whatever. It was cracking. And if he is an impact player, then I think maybe there's almost a little bit of a there's almost a little bit of an attention span almost type thing with Gabs. I don't know whether it's just he's so chaotic and a little bit like a yappy dog in the way that he plays. That the way that I feel is almost like if you just concentrate him for 20, 15 minutes and the game's a bit more broken up, maybe that's absolutely bloody ideal for him, as opposed to having to concentrate and try and work out how to beat a man over the course of a full 90. There is also, he's a great change of pace person, right? Because if you've been facing Trossard the entire time and then all of a sudden you're facing Martinelli, they're just very different. They're just extraordinarily different, right? And similarly, the same, in the inverse as well. You got Martinelli the whole time doing his for 70 minutes, continually driving himself down the left into a blind alleyway, and then you've got Trossard who's like, no, I'll move one way and then the other way, then the other way, then the other way, and kind of constantly jinking, even when sometimes that's frustrating to watch as well, because that can also sometimes be I'll move past the player and then move backwards back past them again and kind of have to try and take them on one more time. It is what it is, but I think I thought it was a good spell, and it was lovely to see him score. It's just to get those 2 moments in a week speaks a lot for the lad's mentality at a time when absolutely he knows he is in, he is not in the ascendancy as he once was on that left wing position. He is not the guy holding that shirt right now.
no.
So to go out, get a couple of moments like that, show the things that you are good at, is a fantastic place for him to be. So fair play to him. Got to give him his flowers this week.
Yeah, indeed. And look, at the end of the day, a draw against City is not the worst result in the world, is it? So,
No.
and as we said, important not to lose. And can you imagine actually how damaging a loss would have been, especially given the current narrative around the club, given the lineup he went out with, the general impatience and anxiety around the supporters and the fan base, and so and maybe the manner in terms of which we got the equaliser is good for the confidence, good for morale. But I think Arteta's sort of goodwill is waning in some parts, and there's going to be a lot of people out there looking for
Even with
blood.
me, I did have a discussion myself almost over about who the problem I keep coming to is who do you get is still the question mark. But
I'm a million miles away from Arteta out, so don't no
I mean, and
start there.
again,
It's just
I'm never
yeah,
much of an out. I've never quite been an out person since Bruce Rioch. So
yeah.
I always
Okay,
felt it was a bit.
that turned out pretty
I
good.
felt that was a little bit rash at the time. So
But how did that one work out 20 years later?
oh, well, Stuart
But
Houston did do a decent job for a while. Yes, absolutely.
oh, shut up. Anyway, look, let's hope. For me, I just want Arteta to learn from this and learn quick, and maybe something. The contrast between the first half and second half is something to take away from it for future games. And but then again, we're playing Newcastle United away next week, so maybe the learning comes a couple of weeks later. So let's see. So look, I think that's done. It is what it is. We got the point. We move on, and maybe that's the difference between finishing on. I think it was Lowe from The Guardian, who said it could be the difference between finishing second on 82 points rather than 83 points. So there we go.
With
At the end
Liverpool
of
on
the
90.
season. Yeah, exactly. So there we go. So look, let's take the positives, and we move on. And we move on rapidly to Port Vale on Wednesday in the third round of the EFL Cup. Very very quickly, what are you looking forward to and not looking forward to, as far as that game's
Looking forward to
concerned?
a change of pace, seeing what the lineup changes are. There's a few lads out of the under 21s that I'd like to potentially see. I think it'd be great to see Harriman Anu get a start up front, give Victor a rest. Because you might say get him in against Port Vale, get him score a few goals. He scored goals against crap Premier League teams already. He doesn't need to score goals against crap League Two teams or League One.
It's League One,
But
yeah.
I think Harriman Anu is someone who started the season. He scored a couple of goals against Wolves the other day, so he's used to beating up on teams from the North or West Midlands. So that'd be nice. I think it'd be potentially quite nice as well to see Josh Nichols back involved again, because he played quite a lot of the League Cups last season, and obviously had a couple of spells in the pre-season, and be nice to see whether he's grown at all or whether he does still look like the most mini man in the world playing football. So yeah, there are a couple of players in particular. I've got my Max Dowman obviously as well. I don't know what his situation is for playing midweek late night games.
Oh yeah, the old yeah.
I think if it was at the Arsenal, that I think he'd definitely play. I think actually when it's Port Vale, I don't think he can actually go to that game. I might
The safeguarding issues, isn't it, or something
I
like
might
that?
be wrong, but I'm fairly sure that we can't. I think we have to get him home by a certain time, basically.
Put him up in a B&B. He'll be fine.
Yeah, well, he's got to go to school. He's literally got school.
He doesn't have to go to school.
He does have to go to school.
What happens if he gets injured? You can sign him off sick for the day.
Look, I did not have a spotless record of attending school, but at no point was I playing in a League Cup game against Port Vale the day before and, thinking I might be caught with that.
Well, maybe he can only play the first half because he's got to go home.
All right, I'm not sure I don't know the rules at all. I'm sure I've heard something before about players not being able to play in an away game in a midweek because they wouldn't be able to get back in time. Anyway, so that's what it is. But I think certainly they're the kind of players that I'm looking to see if they turn up, and that'll be the thing that I look forward to. What I don't look forward to, there's nothing for me to not look forward to at all. It should be all right. It should be a little bit of a you always say one part of these things. Sometimes they turn up and they do a really good thing. They tend not to do it in the League Cup. They tend to do that in the FA Cup. So it's sort of not far enough into the season for them to either having a terrible league campaign that they get over with some kind of miraculous cup run, or alternatively just have that full head of steam amongst them. So I think it will be fine and we'll win the game no matter who we put out. But I'd really like to see a couple of the kids come in and do a little bit of damage.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, I'm lucky enough. I'll be going. So interesting to see a ground. Yeah,
I mean, you're also going to Stoke, mate. So
well, that's my low light. You've stolen my low light. So as I said, I'll be there.
A crowd chant going from our end about how much we hate Stoke and Ryan Shawcroft, and they'll actually join in.
Well, that's the thing. I think we've got a joint hatred for Stoke, so that's that. At least we've got that in common. So yeah, look, I'm looking forward to going to the game, meeting up fellow pod member Moz up there. So be with the travelling army. It's like it's a low stress game. Seeing some of our other players get a game, so that's good. But the low light is obviously it's being near Stoke, and then let's just hope for no more injuries. And yeah, it'll be a bit of a late night journey home, but it's only 2-3 hours away, so it should be fine.
Well, you don't
and look,
let's face it, it's well worth getting yourself back. I
will be.
I pray that there's not an unexpected extra time and penalties.
Well, extra time and penalties. What was it? The one was it Port Vale or Press? I can't remember who it was, but last year Fulham, it went on forever and ever and ever. It's just you're starting getting the council with noise control issues and fines for that, but it went on so late. So, so that's that. In terms of lineup, just none of our so-called first 11 or current first 11 primary players should be anywhere near the starting lineup. I think it's a chance to give others a game. We've got Newcastle on Sunday. So, you're going to see Kepa should get his debut. Then I reckon, White, Mascara, Hicapia if he's fit. He missed yesterday's game because he was unfit. MLS. Nordgaard, Waneri, Marino, maybe. I can't work out who else to play there. And then Dowman, Trossard, Martinelli. I reckon that's it. I mean, the younger players maybe. I'm not too sure. You're right. You got the thing about Dowman. You don't know whether you start someone like Dowman because again, the thing with a 15-year-old playing, grown men, is just that being able to deal with the physicality of it for how long, can it, how, is it 50 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes? How long can you deal with that? So is he more likely going to be a sub than a starter? So you've mentioned a few of the other youth players. So look, the main thing is we shouldn't see any of the first 11 near the
George Bird
starting lineup.
reckons Dowman's nailed on, so there must be no reason that you can't go. By the way, if George Bird knows, I mean George
Okay.
is the man who knows about the under 21s, so
Okay.
you probably will see him. I reckon it'll be him, Nichols, and Harriman Anu. Harriman Anu, I think, has genuinely been really, from the little highlights and bits and bobs that I've been seeing, reports from the 21s, he's really staking a bit of a claim this season. So he's been on the bench, hasn't he? Why not?
You reckon? Yeah, I reckon you'll see those guys on the bench and then we'll change up rather than have seen them start.
I wouldn't be
would
surprised if
suggest,
Nichols and Harriman Anu start. If you think about last season, Preston and what?
Well, yeah, but Ben White, if Ben White was fit, he needs to start. He needs minutes.
Put him centre half if you want him.
Well, then there's Mosquera, Hincapié,
Yeah,
MLS. So,
but also as well, I don't know whether you necessarily. I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Yeah, I think certainly at least I'd like to see Josh Nichols get some time at least anyway because I just quite like the lad. I just like.
Well, I think he would. Like, you start with White, and White hasn't been playing much. This will be his first game back in ages, so then you can share minutes. Him has 16, Nichols, with 30, that sort of thing. So again, look, it's a chance to play around, and it says stress free, and look, what do we know about Port Vale? Well, not a lot, apart from the fact that they are based near Stoke City. So we say we share that common hatred. I did do a little bit of research into them. Then they're 19th in League One. They've played 8 games already, won 2, drawn 2, lost 5, scored 8, let in 10. They're in a bit of a mini run of form, having won their last 2 games against Exeter away and Mansfield at home. And they arrived in the third round by beating Blackpool League One and Birmingham from the Championship, both away and both 1-0. So they seem to be having a nice run there.
Arsenal connection there.
Oh, what's the Arsenal connection?
So Devante Cole, he plays for him.
I knew you would find someone. I knew you'd find someone in their team.
No, Andy Cole's son, isn't it? So not directly, it's Andy Cole's son, old Arsenal striker himself, Andy Cole. Is his son. So yeah, that's my Arsenal connection for this one. Otherwise,
there you go.
They do not have any failed members of the Arsenal Academy in there.
Well,
George Byers is a decent player. George Hall's a good player as well. So there's a couple of decent guys who've been higher up the league. Cameron Humphreys was he was part of the England team that won one of the big competitions at under 17 or under 18, under 19 maybe. I don't know. But I
think it's 19. It's 19. They've won a couple of years running now.
One of those. I think he was at City. I don't know whether he's there on loan, but he's listed with them, and he's a good footballer. So they look like quite a young team, but no, be interesting.
Well, I knew you'd find some names that you recognise, but it should still look. We're playing League One, lower League One opposition, so it should be straightforward. But then try telling Man United that after their travails against the Grimsby, but. And look, it will be disjointed. Don't expect too much in terms of flowing football because of the number of changes, it's an unfamiliar team. So I don't expect too much. It's just hopefully just a nice kickabout, some minutes into some legs, getting some minutes into some players that haven't had much of a chance. And we should still be way too good for them, and maybe some players will sort of turn up and show Arteta what they've got, and put themselves in consideration for Newcastle at the weekend. So let's see. So what's your prediction?
Christ, it's let's go 3-0, and on penalties. Let's go 3-0. And honestly, I'd love to see young Aaron Anu get a goal or something. I'm just desperate for a new kid. We haven't had a new kid for a while. Well, we have. We've had Dalman, but he's
Well, you
boring already,
kid for a
isn't
while.
he?
We got Dalman, we got MLS, and we got
Well, he
Waneri.
doesn't really
Come on.
count because he went straight in the Premier League. It's just been, it's been so long since we've had a League Cup upstart. You know what I mean? But
Oh, so
that
that's what. Yeah,
season,
we haven't
obviously,
had
there was
a.
Ranieri and there was MLS and there was Josh Nichols. I mean, literally,
Yeah,
I've just been waiting a year for the League Cup to see some of the kids get a chance, isn't it?
there
But
we go.
Josh Nichols is a boring one in a way, even though I love him. He's
Yeah.
we've seen him in 2 League Cup games last season. So,
Yeah, God, he's a stalwart. He's not a
veteran.
stalwart. He's an
Veteran
old
at this
man of
point,
the
mate.
team. So
Absolutely, he's the veteran Oompa Loompa.
yeah,
But I can't wait
yeah.
to see Harry Manu go and score some goals. That's my prediction.
I can tell you're more excited about this than our Champions League match against Bayern Munich in a month's time. But there we go.
What?
Well, I don't know. It seems like you're going to be more excited about this than say Newcastle at the weekend.
I
So
sort of am, to be honest.
yeah, well, it's less stressful. It's less stressful. There we go. Well, I
I
wrote
love
down
these
my
games,
prediction.
mate. They're absolutely fantastic.
Oh no, I like them. They again, it's low stress. You can watch it, have a bit of fun with it, and so on. Just as long as we win, and then hopefully we get
If the
another
under
away.
21s played at the Emirates, I'll probably just go and watch them. I probably wouldn't bother with full team anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's just a bit more chill, isn't it?
Or you can start your own pod on that. Then there we go. Right, and I went 3-0 as well. I wrote it down beforehand, so I went 3. It just seems like a 3-0 game, that sort of thing. So that there we go, and that wraps that up. That wraps up City and Port Vale. So thank you, Jamie, for all your positivity this evening. And I'm joking. You did. It was good that you gave a bit of an alternative view on the discourse
I would
around
love, because
the lineup.
I've had a lot of, like, I told you so moments with a bunch of Arsenal players over the last few years that we signed. I would love to be
To be
incredibly
wrong.
wrong on Viktor Gyökeres. Unfortunately, I just am sat there. I'm just confused at the moment, and I really hope I return to the same enthusiasm I had in the days where it led up to it, and I got carried on that wave.
Yeah,
we'll see.
We'll see. We'll keep that one. Keep that one in the. Yeah, I'll keep the receipts on that one. So anyway, so thank you on that. Look, you can follow us on Threads and Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, and all the rest of it at the Grove AFC. Next show will be post Port Vale, pre Newcastle United, most probably on Thursday. And as I said, if you enjoy what you hear, and even if you don't, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, rating, all that jazz, because we really appreciate it. And it just helps us get us noticed on the podcast feed. So there we go. So look, again, 1-1 draw against City at home, not the end of the world. Could have been worse, could have been better. We learn from it, we move on, and let's see we go. It's only September. It's September the 22nd. No one's won the league on September the 22nd before, unless you're Tottenham. And there we go. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And as always, until the next time, come on, you Gunners.